Good afternoon. In the class today, I want to look at, in week 4, education in the social context of age groups, families, childhood and youth development, and development through the age from early primary through to late primary through to high into the working life. We can look too at family influence on the child's educational choices, decisions and motivations. And we can also look at family challenges and problems. But in particular, we want to focus on the developmental stages as a child grows and as a child enters into later upper childhood and into teenage years and on towards adulthood. In particular, we want to realise that society can place certain expectations on particular age groups. They may read age in a certain way, and sometimes this can remove agency from children. And one of the great efforts in recent times is to restore agency, choice, opportunity for all children, rather than reducing this by submitting to different adult impositions that may limit their choices and future. While teachers rightly focus on the content of their teaching, they can easily overlook the important social context in which teaching takes place, in terms of the social world, of the classroom, peers, other children, and the school and their homes and families with which the children and teachers interact and in which children and youth are raised, and the wider world of work, tertiary education that lies beyond, and health, politics and economics and other institutions and parts of society. And by considering these social contexts, whether more closely related to teaching and school or more distant, or at home in families, teachers can create a more connected, enriching, effective learning experience that connects family with school and the classroom and beyond into workplaces and other social settings. And for Christians, it could include church, or for other religious groups, it could include their religious connections, and it could include sports and other social connections. Teaching doesn't occur in a vacuum. It's deeply intertwined with various social contexts, with the children being involved. And so the better we can understand their peer group, their place in society, their place among families, their place in a particular culture, we can better tailor our teaching to meet their needs. The social dynamics within a classroom and the school environment play a pivotal role in the expectations of the students and in shaping the learning opportunity for our students. These learning opportunities are not only influenced by the teaching material, but also social position within the classroom, class sizes, diversity of student backgrounds and how they feel in relation to this, classroom management and how they fit in with this, peer group interactions. All sorts of dynamics are taking place, and it's important for teachers to seek to better understand these in order that all students might do well in their schooling, not just those who fit in best. Home and family environments are particularly important in a student's success, because if the family environment and the parents are supportive of that which is going on in the school or in a particular subject, the student's more likely to be interested. If the parents encourage reading or literature, or encourage a particular type of media or literature, or an interest in maths or engineering or a particular vocational area, the students are more likely to flourish in these areas. The ever-changing wider work world, employment that lies beyond the school, can also motivate the students and influence their aspirations and their efforts in each of the areas and subjects that they study. And exposing students to future world possibilities can stir their interest and develop their sense of opportunity and effort that they put in, whereas a feeling that they will never succeed in a particular area can reduce their interest. And so teachers can help students to not only develop academic skills, but also develop interest in various vocational opportunities and also practical skills that might be useful in the future. Not only academic skills in terms of library and research and reading and writing maths, but also practical skills and also social relational skills, and extending a subject like mathematics into practical opportunity outside the classroom, extending studying a subject like woodwork, metalwork, visual art, drama, all of those can be seen as connected to the wider world beyond the classroom and also in work opportunities that lie in the future. And this also involves exposing the students not only to future career opportunities, but also the skills that they'll need in terms of diligence, communication, social collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, adaptability, resilience, social and study skills, and physical dexterity and perseverance skills that are needed to do well in various career paths. Teachers can help students to better understand their social settings in this world and in future work opportunities, and thus develop a more holistic approach to education that engages with the wider world in which they live, and physical and mental health and social relational skills, in order to be able to get on well with other students, with other people from various backgrounds, and in future work opportunities. Showing cultural sensitivity too by the teacher and also by students can help through acknowledging and respecting cultural diversity, religious diversity, social class diversity, and different perspectives and experiences from people from different backgrounds. And thus, students can not only develop skills in engaging with people from different backgrounds, we can also promote a more inclusive learning environment that helps all students feel included. By engaging with family members and encouraging a connection between the home and the school, and family members at home and the school, we can establish communication channels that can help bridge the gap that's so often felt between home and school. And this increased involvement can help to promote the students' learning in every subject area through seeing that it's valued at home, valued at school, by encouraging a home-school connection. By demonstrating a real-world relevance, such as showing that the areas we're studying at school are important in the wider world, important at home, and important in future careers, students become more enthused, and they put in more effort, and they gain better results, and they see the value and application of all that they study in many, many areas that they study. These considerations can raise a number of questions, including how can teachers benefit from developing skills in learning to understand their students in their class and the background in terms of parents and culture and home life. How can they develop skills so that they can better listen to and understand children and students, where they come from, and how they can support these students in showing the application of what is done in the classroom to what is done in the wider world, the home and the employment world. This raises questions as what roles do social institutions such as schools play in connecting with the outside world and developing learning experiences that connect with the outside world. It raises questions as to how can teachers better understand these relationships and build connections that help students to do better in the subjects that they study. And it helps raise questions about how attitudes and actions that are promoted within the students help them to become more stable and committed in their commitment, and help the schools to become more stable and committed to the development of their students. It raises questions about what causes instability when students lose interest at school and see it as irrelevant, and how that can be bridged and understood. From these insights, one might develop a philosophy of education that includes various emphases on seeing the importance of connecting the school world with the home world, with the family world, with vocational options and opportunities, so as to increase the motivation of students and show the relevance in what they do. Or encourage students to think about what would they put in a philosophy of education that they might show and talk about in an interview in future school teaching opportunities that they may have. Certainly, in a philosophy of education, you could discuss some of these connections with home and the workplace, but you could also reflect upon your beliefs and values and principles about teaching and learning, what you see as important in your teaching and learning and in the classroom. And some of the key elements that you could focus on include a discussion or writing down of your educational beliefs and goals. And every one of us may be different. Some may be more extroverted, more introverted. Some may be more interested in sport or music or drama or literature. All of these might flow through. And it's important to be open, authentic, honest about our areas of interest in order to develop teaching and work opportunities that align most closely with our areas of interest. You could state your overarching goals for your students in terms of their intellectual, emotional, social, and ethical development, and the ways in which you would go about promoting this development. These days, schools often talk about student-centered approaches where we're not so much pouring information into the students, but rather we're encouraging students to take responsibility for their own learning, to develop skills, to be self-educating and self-learning in order that they might be better prepared for the world ahead. These approaches and those reflected in a philosophy of education could emphasise the importance of tailoring instruction to individual students' needs, looking for the learning styles of different students and showing awareness of their different abilities and meeting the needs at different ability levels. One could highlight in a philosophy of education a commitment to fostering positive, inclusive classroom environments that encourage and support learners from a diversity of backgrounds. One could also talk about the teaching methods and strategies that one would use, such as practical, hands-on approaches, visual learning, using a diversity of skills that students would feel included, whatever strengths they might have, and valuing every student for the effort they make. One could discuss how to plan to engage students in various skills such as critical thinking, not just accepting what is said, but asking questions about what is said and providing a safe space for students to ask those questions. One could talk about problem-solving approaches and collaborative activities in order to develop mental thinking skills and to develop social skills. One could also talk in a philosophy of education about curriculum design and content and about how you would go about developing relevant and up-to-date content in curriculum. One could explain how one could connect the curriculum to the real world, as we discussed earlier, so as to learn about family, home life, to learn about vocational settings and thus improve motivation. One should also talk about class management and discipline approaches that are positive and orderly and help every student feel valued. One could explain ways of addressing behavioural issues which value the student rather than entering into conflict, that provide fair and supportive approach that keeps the classroom environment positive rather than allowing a negative classroom environment to develop. One could talk about the role of the teacher as a mentor and a guide rather than simply dispensing information. And one could discuss one's commitment to professional development. In a philosophy of teaching and learning, one could elaborate on one's beliefs and about how this aligns with helping students to work best. One could also talk about fostering a lifelong love of learning and independent thinking, about the development of ethics and value and character, and how one could model ethical behaviour and values among students and encourage them to model that one to another. And as we mentioned earlier, one could also talk about and model parent-community engagement, and one could also mention the importance of being flexible and adaptable. For Christians, it's particularly important, if you're applying for a Christian school, to talk about how you would integrate your faith and values and talk about the foundations of your faith and how they might be applied in a Christian setting and environment. For all people, it's important to talk about character and values and how these can be nurtured. And one could also talk about spirituality, that is, how an understanding of ultimate concerns and meaning in life can be particularly important and how they can be encouraged through having times of reflection. One could talk about service and outreach and the values of generosity. One could talk about truth-seeking and being critical, not in terms of complaining, but in terms of careful analysis. One could talk about connecting with others who are fellow teachers and connecting with those who have different roles in the school, such as the administration, the library. One could talk about your own personal life journey, or in a Christian school setting, your own personal faith journey and how this connects with your commitment to teaching. Now, in all of these areas, theories of development have implications for the ways in which we practice our teaching. And so the study of developmental theory can help us to understand the ways in which children go through developmental stages, through different ages, from the early years of 2, 3, 4-year-old, and then on into early school years, upper primary school, and then on into high school. Certainly major theories like Piaget's developmental theories remind us that children don't all approach knowledge in the same way, but they do have agency and interest and need to be valued at every stage of their development. Children do develop as they interact with their physical and social worlds around them, and they learn what is acceptable, what's the most successful approach to use, and how to adapt and change over time in order to be more effective in their learning and in the outcomes that come from this learning. Certainly there's a range of stages that they go through, and if we can provide age-appropriate experiences, then students will have a lot of success. And it's important for us in our classrooms to realise that some of our students or children may be advancing more quickly than others, and we need to provide support for students at all stages of development so that each one knows good levels of success. It's important that we treat children as individuals, not seeking to get them all to sit and fit into the same mould. And it's important that we scaffold discovery learning so that students can build on what they already know at whatever level they're at in order to move on to higher levels of understanding. It's important that we make our teaching practical and that we use our observations to inform the curriculum that's developed, and that we give students an opportunity to play, to enjoy, to experiment so that they can develop skills themselves through asking open-ended questions and developing skills in providing answers. A number of theorists, such as Vygotsky in his social cultural theory, offer help to encourage us to develop scaffolding in which students not only develop skills academically, but also self-regulation and imagination, develop skills to understand the opportunities of their physical and social settings and cultural settings around them, and that they can develop approaches that are going to make them more effective. Bowlby attachment theory reminds us that children need long-term meaningful relationships in order to be successful in that which they do. And if teachers can take time to build meaningful relationships with their students and encourage meaningful relationships with peers, one to another, then students will have more success, particularly when they're positive, supportive peer networks. Engaging in warm, consistent care from adults to children and children to children can help promote a sense of safety and security and success. And developing quality early attachments can be important for developing security in the development of future relationships and social skills. Other theorists like Erik Erikson remind us that children go through a number of stages as they move on through the primary, secondary, and on to work life. Bourdieu, in his social capital fund of knowledge approach, reminds us of the importance of respect and celebrating the funds of knowledge that children have. The need to avoid stereotypes and the need to encourage critical engagement, not only with knowledge, but with the topics that they are working with. And there's a number of other theorists that you could work through and engage as you reflect further on the different approaches that can be taken in order to be effective as a teacher and effective in learning. As Christians, we also would see that particular theological understanding, such as children and people being made in the image of God, good, potentially with so much that they could do, being valued, can bring a great deal of success in all that they do. Viewing a partnership with parents in the development of children, not only academically, but also spiritually, can also be seen as very important. And Christian educators have the opportunity to harness these relationships with students and with parents and family in order to promote the flourishing of their children. But back to the topic that we began with in terms of career expectation, schools, teachers, and parents are not only powerful agents in teaching in a school environment, they also look forward to future career opportunities. They look outward to other social developments such as sport or such as particular areas of interest such as literature, the arts or science, and a huge range of other areas. And this can influence a child's aspirations and their career development and the effort that they put into the subjects that they work with. And working with parents and encouraging this exploration can be very fruitful. Gottfredson and Horrott have developed theoretical insights about the ways in which children's career expectations are often discussed in talking with parents, in talking with teachers, which can encourage a certain sense of the value of gender or prestige or other social factors which see some jobs as more achievable or more valued than others. A child's knowledge about subjects and also careers can influence the ways in which they value the efforts that they make at school. And so the interrelated factors of knowledge, emotional value, resilience, interest, ability and self-confidence and self-efficacy can all interrelate to encourage efforts to be made by children in the topics that they study. A knowledge of vocational opportunities and information at various careers can help develop an awareness and an awareness of the value of efforts so that students can try harder. Realising emotional value in the commitment to particular interests or careers can be useful, even though these may change over time, and having a broad interest in a broad range of future career opportunities and areas of interest can be useful. But particularly important is beliefs in one's ability as a student or a child that one can achieve a great deal if you're persistent, if you develop skills, if you follow the guidelines and paths and educational opportunities that are open. Children who believe they have an ability to learn, to solve problems, to excel in particular areas are more likely to choose those pathways, those study areas in order to be successful in the path in the future. I remember when I was in upper high school, I had a bit of an interest in science, and I did very poorly in a science study part of the year, and the teacher came up to me and said that, I'll probably have to give up my studies in science unless things improved. And I thought about it and I thought, no, I'm really interested in science. And so I went to the library and got a few books out on optics and physics and the areas that were being studied, and I read and swatted at them. And I was about middle of the class, and there were two very bright students who were top of the class. One was from a medical family who wanted to go on and become a doctor, which he did, and one was from a more science-oriented family, and he wanted to go on and achieve there, which he did. And I was in the middle of the class, but I started to swat away and read these books. And then the next test came up, and surprise, surprise, I was top of the class and remained top of the class for the rest of the year through learning that if you put a bit of work in and read some of the scholarly books, a lot can happen. And many children will talk about that moment when they realised that they had opportunities. I'm reminded of someone in their teens was asked to caddy for their mother in their family lived in Townsville. They were into engineering, and he suddenly showed interest in that and started to go to practice golf every morning for a couple of hours, and his interest in golf sport grew. And his name was Greg Norman, and eventually became #1 golfer in the world from a little part of Australia. So developing interest can make a huge difference to the effort students put in and to the results they achieve. And I'm sure you could remember and think of many other examples along the same line. In a well-known study on working class children, Willis argues that working class children do not value the professional or white-collar jobs that the more middle-class children do. And without that value, they don't put in the effort, and then without achieving results, they often choose other pathways in life that are way less rewarding and lead them into marginal areas of society and job opportunity. Occupational expectations have a huge influence on children and their prospects of success. Teacher expectations, teacher connections with families and family expectations all contribute to the interest and the effort that children will make in their schooling journey. By having a positive, encouraging, inclusive approach to education and schooling, then our students are all likely to be encouraged to do well, and we can be rewarded by seeing that our efforts of encouragement have had fruit. I encourage you to reflect on this and to think about the ways in which the application of these insights into your classroom teaching can bear fruit. Thank you.